Good evening and welcome. I'm John Bishop, the Superintendent of Schools, and it's my pleasure to welcome you this evening. Today is our last of 3 installments for our parent forum about the reopening of schools. As a reminder, we had a parent forum on Monday night with Mrs. Chrisman that presented the reopening plan for Harry Hogue Elementary School. On Tuesday night, we had Dr. Larrabee, who presented the junior-senior high school plan for reopening. And this evening, you'll hear from Mrs. Kanelatis, who will present the reopening plans as facilitated by Special Education Services. Following that, I will provide a brief overview of our remote-only learning options. And without further ado, I'd like to turn it over to Mrs. Kanelatis. I'd like to remind you that on our website, you can find some of our reopening plans that are on our YouTube live videos. So the YouTube live videos can be found on our YouTube channel, and we also have links to them. If you do have any additional questions about our reopening plans, please feel free to continue submitting them to the questionnaire on the Google form that we have. And the Google form will continue to be populated throughout the rest of this week. It's our goal to make sure that we're answering any and all questions that you have. So we encourage you to please reach out to us if there are any questions that you have after you've seen the presentations, after you've reviewed any of the videos. It's our goal to make sure that we are meeting your needs and your family's needs with our reopening plans. So we encourage you, please reach out and stay connected to the school. Again, without further ado, I turn it over to Mrs. Kanelatis.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
First and foremost, I really do want to take a moment to express my sincere gratitude to the Fort Plain community for their ongoing support. I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge the special education staff for all of their hard work, dedication, and innovation that we were able to see in the spring. I would also be remiss if I didn't really appreciate and recognize the parents of our students with disabilities, as they were incredibly responsive and flexible to our changing environment. I was able to really witness what it meant to be a Hilltopper in the spring, which was my privilege. As we get started tonight, I do want to provide a little information before we get into the nitty-gritty of the special education reopening plan. Tonight, I'm going to be using the definition student with a disability, and I'm talking specifically about those students that are classified as a student with a disability and has an IEP. I may also mention students who have a 504 accommodation plan, but I'll really try to be precise in my language to identify when I'm talking about either of those subgroups or both of those groups together. The chat box is also open for questions, and I would just ask the viewers tonight to keep in mind confidentiality, as that's an important part of special education. So if you have questions, please try to keep them general or generic. If you have specific questions regarding your child, please reach out to me or your child's teacher, but I'll get into that a little bit more further in this presentation tonight. So as we reflect on the school closure, we recognize that students with disabilities were particularly impacted by the school closure. Some students were not able to really fully access their programs and services, particularly those programs and services that are just better served and in person, or when a child's disability really impeded their ability to participate remotely. For those reasons, districts were asked to really prioritize in-person learning environment for our high needs students. And I think that's what our plan really does and highlights. Individualized educational programs are the backbone of special education. Those IEPs are always developed by our Committee of Special Education, and each year we review those plans and programs based on the present levels of students. Like any other year, we reviewed those plans in the spring. We held all of our CSE meetings in the remote session in the virtual world. And I have to really praise our parents, as parent attendance was at an all-time high. But even more incredible was the parent engagement and participation. Because parents were facilitators of their child's education, they had incredible observations and things to bring to the Committee of Special Education that made those meetings incredibly valuable when developing the IEPs. So we are committed to implementing those IEPs to the furthest and fullest extent possible. Students with IEPs and 504 plans will have access to the necessary accommodations, modifications, and programs, whether in the remote or in-person learning environment. Just as a reminder, it's really important to remember the purpose of special education, which is to provide equity and access for students with disabilities, so that they're able to be involved in and participate in the general education program to the fullest extent possible. Special education is a tool in the toolbox for schools to level the playing field for our students with disabilities. So it's really important that we remember that that is the purpose of special education. During our annual review meetings and within our IEPs, we recommend a wide variety of programs and services for our students with disabilities. Many of these programs and services we are able to provide right in the Fort Plain Central School District. Others we utilize outside programs and services to service our children. Over the past few years, our building principals and special education staff have worked incredibly hard to develop a robust special education continuum that we're able to meet the needs of all of our learners at Fort Plain. I really want to highlight and celebrate that this year we will continue to offer that wide range of special education services that many of our students have grown accustomed to receiving here at within the Fort Plain School District. Because special education is always individualized and based on each unique learner, it's really hard to go into depth about the special education reopening plan, as it's really individualized per student. There are a couple of generalizations that I can provide, but this may not apply to all students, as each student will have and does have their individualized plan. So students that receive special education services in the self-contained classes, those students are invited to attend daily. Those are those students I was referring to earlier in the presentation, that those are the most needs students, the high need students. Students that services and programs are typically integrated into our general education program will follow the A-B schedule as designated by their building principal. But to support those learners on the remote days, we will be providing a variety of age-appropriate supports and/or services. So some of those services may include assignments or tasks that are provided at their instructional level, teletherapy services such as speech and language services provided via Google Meets, small live instructional groups, pre-recorded lessons with the necessary accommodations and modifications, and also access to general education and special education teachers throughout the day, such as office hours or when their schedule, their individualized schedule allows for that. We're also looking at the possibility of inviting some of our learners in by appointment on their remote day if we're unable to meet all of the accommodations and modifications provided in their individualized educational program. Again, each student has an individual plan. So if you have questions or concerns about that program, I invite you to reach out to me directly between now and when school starts. My number and email are behind me, but also they're located on the school district's website. If you already know your special education teacher, feel free to reach out to them too if you have specific questions that you feel they might have the answer to. As we get into the school year, each student will be assigned a case manager. The case manager is a special education teacher or a member of the Committee of Special Education or 504 committee. And that staff member is tasked with implementing that child's plan. As questions and concerns pop up throughout the school year, I encourage parents to consult with that child's case manager. The partnership and communication between the special education teacher, the parent, the caregiver, and the student is really going to be critical this year. We have a dynamic staff of special education teachers that are they have such an expertise with teaching and learning. And when that's combined with the expertise that the parent can provide about their own child, it is a combination that could only lead to success and problem solving. So I would encourage that relationship to really start from the first day of school or before. And as always, parents and caregivers, feel free to call the special education office with questions and concerns related to your student's individualized plan. I have received a few phone calls from parents asking how they can help their child make the transition from home to school. We recognize that some of our students have been home much longer than the summer vacation, and we're anticipating that transition and preparing for it. And we're developing social emotional curriculum to meet those students where they're at. But there are some things that parents can do between now and the start of school year. So I've provided just a few suggestions. If you can start preparing your children now for that upcoming transition by getting back to that school year routine, that will be helpful. You can start setting those realistic bedtimes, limiting the amount of screen time or video games, having students start picking out their own outfits for the next day. Getting back to those school routines will be incredibly helpful. I would encourage you all to stay positive as much as possible. I know sending students back to school have a lot of emotions attached to it, but children often take their emotional cues from the adults that they interact with. So if we can remain positive, our students will have the best foot going forward when it comes to the first day of school. I would encourage you to continue practicing and teaching those good hygienes and the face covering etiquette. The more we can prepare students, the easier that transition back to school will be. Have open and age-appropriate conversations with your child about reopening schools. Listen to your children, try to answer their questions, and it's okay to not have all the answers. That's why we're here to help facilitate and alleviate some of the unknown. And continue to have those conversations with children. It will be important that the lines of communication are open and that children are feeling that they can have an ally as they transition back to school. And my last suggestion would just be to know now who to reach when you need help. It's all important for us to have a good support system around us and to know who the support system is for our children. So start thinking about, do you know the name of the school counselor and how you may contact them if you have a question or concern. Make sure you're engaging with your pediatrician. If you're engaged in mental health counseling, make sure that that relationship is open and that you know who is out there when or if you need help. So those are just some few suggestions. They're little things that I think will make a big difference, not just not for our students with disabilities, but really for all students, but with a special lens on our students with disabilities. These things I think can really help ease the transition back to school. So that is my presentation. I would encourage parents to reach out if they have questions specific to their children. If not, Mr. Bishop, I will pass it on to you.
Thank you, Mrs. Canelatis. Some really great reminders and about transitioning back to school and easing that for the children at home. In addition, we do have a great staff here that are more than willing and able to help to ease that transition and provide answers to any questions that have yet to be answered. Just as a reminder, some of the guiding principles that we had with our plan include maintaining a focus on teaching and learning and maximizing the opportunities for us to be able to connect with students, whether it's an in-person learning day or whether it's a remote learning day. We are committed to making school feel normal again for students to the greatest degree that we can. We're committed to ensuring that our school environment is a safe and healthy environment for all of our students and our employees. To that degree, we want you to be comfortable with our reopening plan. And over the past few days, we have received a good amount of interest in what we're calling a remote-only learning option for students. So to best meet the needs of students and families, we're exploring the viability to be able to offer that option. So tomorrow morning, there will be a survey that is posted on our website, and it will be pushed out through Remind, asking people who would be interested in that remote-only learning option. If that's something that you think would suit your family's needs, I'd like to let you know that if we do offer that remote-only option, it would have to be an option that parents would opt into for a period of time, and we're designating that as a semester. So you would commit to the remote-only option from September through January 24th or 5th at the end of that first semester. And we're exploring that option, and we want to get some really good data to see how we could fit that into our schedule. Again, we are committed to making sure that our reopening plan evolves to meet the needs of our families in our community. And this is just one way that we can go about doing that, because we're hearing from people that they want to consider that remote-only option, and we'd like to have some data to explore that. So tomorrow morning, that survey will be open. Please provide us with your child's name or names and the grade levels that are associated with those children, and we will continue to explore that as an option. So at this point in time, we'd like to answer any questions that have come through in the chat box.
How are students in the high school going to get their computers for the first day? Or are they doing first day online or getting computers in advance?
The communication regarding distribution of computers will be coming out very shortly. That'll be communicated by Dr. Larrabee in the welcome back letter, and I believe that's intended to go out next week. So we will have some information for you on that. Again, if you don't get the information there, feel free to reach out to one of the counselors or Dr. Larrabee herself.
What about the flexibility for online learning? Are students required to be on during set hours?
It will work differently at the elementary school and at the junior high school. At the elementary school, the standards for screen time are slightly different. So we're looking at bookending the day with the remote option so that we're developing those strong connections to the classroom community. Again, we're hoping to evolve where we can have all of our students return to school in one cohort. So we want them to know their classmates. So starting the day with a circle time activity or a community activity or outlining the schedule, and then bookending the day with some more classroom connection time and or talking about the different learning resources that we use in that environment. In the junior senior high school, students will actually be following their daily schedule on the remote learning day. So that means that if they have an 8 o'clock class that's science on that remote day, they're expected to connect with that science teacher in the morning. The science teacher would then give them the learning activities for that particular day and be available to support that. That could include what we consider to be synchronous instruction, where there's interaction right on the screen using a Google Meet platform. It could include the distribution and explaining of an assignment, and then the teacher would be a resource for those students if there were any questions during that block of time. So the students in the juniors high school will be following their daily schedule, and the students at Harry Hogue will be connecting at the beginning and end of the day.
Are there any special guidelines for children who are susceptible to illness and have weaker immune systems?
Oh, there sure are. We consider them to be of the medical vulnerable population, and we will have a process in place to help to support those students. So if there are any medical conditions that you are concerned about, please provide that doctor's note to the administration, and we will be in contact and work with you individually to make sure that we have a safe reopening plan and an environment in place for your particular child based on that illness. Well, parents, I do appreciate again. Thank you, Mrs. Canelatis, for being here this evening. And I encourage you to please reach out to us if there are any additional questions that you have with our reopening plans. Again, we are continuing to have our plans evolve to meet the needs of our learning community. And in order to do that, we need your feedback. So if you continue to have questions about our reopening plan, we encourage you to reach out and stay connected to us. The information helps us to devise a better plan. Oh, we have one final question that came in about internet access. If internet access is a challenge for you and or your family, please reach out to your building principal. We have explored a number of different opportunities to be able to provide you with a stable internet connection. That may include giving you a Wi-Fi if you have access to a Verizon cell service. If not, we can continue to help you to resolve that technical issue to ensure that your child can access remote learning on that remote learning day. Once again, I'm John Bishop, Superintendent of Schools. We really do appreciate you tuning in and helping us to devise a reopening plan. Our partnership is very strong, and we're committed to making sure that our reopening plans meet the needs of all of our families. Thank you again very much, and enjoy the rest of the summer. Stay safe.